Hi all, this is Skate, and the purpose of this video is to try and get some guidance and tips for all of us new World of Warships Blitz players. So I have a special guest with me who is a World of Warships PC version community contributor, and that is iEarlGrey. Say hello, mate.
Hey guys, how are you all?
The idea basically is, just like World of Tanks PC, World of Tanks Blitz is a shrunken down version with the same game mechanics, just slight variations. And the same applies with World of Warships and World of Warships Blitz. So the idea here is just to get some specialist insights, some little sneaky tips, hints, tricks to help us on the way. And obviously, iEarlGrey is the man to do it for us. So I'm going to be picking your brains like mad in this video, mate.
Yeah, that's a pleasure.
Now, obviously, as you know, I haven't really ever played World of Warships on PC, except for that one occasion. We were at a show, and iEarlGrey literally turned around and said, "Have you ever played it?" I went, "No, I'd probably suck, although I am very interested, because I like the history behind a lot of the ships." So I had a go. The first time I ever played it, I had you and Jingles standing behind me. And it was an honour, because I had both of you guys coaching me, so I couldn't have been in a better situation for my first battle. However, it's a lot of pressure, and there's two big World of Warships names watching you. It's kind of a don't noob out, don't noob out, don't noob out. And that's pretty much the experience I had of World of Warships prior to World of Warships Blitz. So obviously I don't have a vast amount of experience like yourself. We were chatting obviously before we started recording. You mentioned obviously I have more hours in World of Warships Blitz, but that's a drop in the ocean in comparison to what you have in World of Warships.
Yeah, I think currently in the main game I'm standing, and this is tiny by tanks talk, but about I think it's 5,207 battles. May have shot up to 5,210 this evening. Had a couple of rounds. That's actually random battles. I've been doing a lot more in ranked. Where I can, well, I will be making some observations in differences, and the purpose of that will be to highlight things you can expect if guys haven't played Blitz and are listening to this and they're curious and they want to sort of take the plunge and get in, then they'll know what to expect. Those who have taken that little dip into the ocean and they're a little bit baffled by what they're looking at, they may even be new to both games. So Blitz may very well be their introduction, and that I think you'll agree is quite a high possibility.
Yeah. No, definitely. There's a lot of the whole idea behind this. Obviously, the vast majority of my subscribers would be for World of Tanks Blitz.
Yeah, so there'll be some familiarity with the mobile interface, and they may well, I think, actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, the high likelihood here is going to be WOT Blitz players trying WoW's Blitz and not probably having played World of Warships on the PC.
Precisely, which is why we need an expert like you.
And again, you're too kind by saying expert.
The other thing, you mentioned you had about 5,000 battles, which you said is not a great deal in comparison to World of Tanks, but the game duration on average lasts a lot longer in World of Warships. Yeah. It's the same with World of Tanks Blitz, and let's just go with WoW's Blitz and shorten them. Otherwise, half this video is going to be trying to differentiate between the two. The average game on WOT Blitz, although it's a 7-minute countdown, is only about 3 minutes long.
Okay. Yeah.
Yet, on World of Warships Blitz, I think nearly every game I play, it goes until the timer runs out.
Really? Right. I've only played low tiers in WoW's Blitz, and they have been very short and snappy. Even a full timer, though. What is the full timer in WoW's Blitz, actually?
Only 6 minutes. I think they need to raise it, personally.
Yeah, that is a common bit of feedback I've heard, actually, that they would like it lengthened slightly, because the full timer in the main game is 20 minutes. I believe it's massive. I think, is it 15 in World of Tanks?
Yeah, 14 or 15.
Around that mark, isn't it? So they've really compressed it down. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, 8 minutes even, perhaps, for WoW's Blitz.
Oh, definitely. I don't even think that'd be too much of a big deal either, because you do end up running out on the clock before you've killed all the other ships or sunk
And there's
all the
nothing
other
more
ships.
frustrating as a draw.
No, that is annoying, but obviously with the cap points going up constantly, because it's a lot easier to cap in the Blitz version. Obviously, you're always accruing points. The draws are rare, but when you've got, like, for example, one ship left and he's just out of your range and he's going in the same direction as you and you can't catch him, yeah, that's really annoying. Especially if you know there's a little bit more juicy damage. It's usually the carrier right at the last.
Oh yeah, they're always pesky, bit like Artie in World of Tanks.
Oh, I love them though, especially in the destroyers. That's one thing I'm doing at the moment, because the maps are so small. I like to take the destroyer, spot as you're going around without firing, and then get up to the carrier and just launch everything I've got at it and
In
try
fact,
and
I've
take
seen
it
it
out.
in one of your videos. Yeah, you can't normally get away with that in the main game without attracting a lot of criticism for doing it.
Too many ships, I imagine, as well.
Yeah, there's that aspect too. I'm again low tiers. I've got a lower number of ships in WoW's Blitz, but I think that's another reason why the games go so quickly as well. But I mean, the big striking thing is actually WoW's Blitz has many improvements over the main game, I would say.
Really?
In the main game, if we just look at the fact you can control the secondaries, this is something players have been screaming out for since the beginning of World of Warships.
I don't know. I'm curious as to how that would be in the main game, only because in this game it's you're non-stop firing, aren't you?
Yeah, it can be. I mean, Steel Ocean implemented it, and it was just a touch of a key. I think it was something like to change ammunition, you held Alt, and you press the ammunition, the thing you're firing. So that changed the type, and then you cycled through 1, 2, 3, 4.
It is interesting though. It is purely because I think without being able to control the secondaries, it would be a lot slower and a lot more.
Yes.
But with firing the secondaries manually, you're switching constantly. Or if you're in a battleship with ridiculous amount of guns, I found that I'm hitting the main guns, switching to the secondaries, firing 2 off, and then switching straight back to the mains again.
And that's the key thing. It makes Battleship gameplay far more engaging. There's normally for players in World of Warships, there's a lot of waiting around. Same with artillery in World of Tanks, the main game. You're sitting there for that long reload time, but with the secondaries, it's boom, switch over in the time they're loading, back to the main artillery.
Exactly. Battleships, I've got to say, are my favourite class so far. I'm loving them.
Yeah, so you said you're up to Izumo just in the sort of test account.
No, in my actual accounts, I haven't actually mentioned that yet. In my actual accounts,
on Asia.
Yeah, which Wargaming are in the process of transferring to EU server for me.
Oh, you lucky
They
man.
said at first it wasn't possible, but now they've said that they're going to be able to transfer my progress from the Asian server to the EU server. In the interim, though, they've loaned me a press account. So the background footage to this video right now is pretty much just playing all random tier 10 ships, basically.
Yep. The end game.
Exactly. So for those who haven't seen any of the tier 10 ships, they are all running around in the... Well, I say running around, sailing around, obviously, in the background of this video. I think actually we better start touching on that, because otherwise you and me together are probably going to... Exactly. Battleships. Now, obviously, the best first tip I'd give anyone on battleships, on Blitz especially, because the maps are a lot smaller, is, well, I like to do it, as I mentioned to you before we started this, is I turn the direction I want to go at the very start, and I will point my guns in the direction opposite right from the very, very get-go. Purely because the turrets take so long to turn around, you know your guns are in position, ready.
Yeah, the same applies for your ship in general. So you'll look at that mini-map and you will decide where the best place is. With the distribution of islands or other obstacles, you'll be looking for hopefully open water for best viewing, so you're not going to get pounced on by destroyers. Don't go out on your own. So many people pick the opposite direction as the cruisers are going. The cruisers are there to back you up on the screen. So you'll try and go with the flow of your fleet. Pay attention to your own fleet. But position yourself in an imposing position. Use the range of those guns to cover cap circles if needed, so you can respond and react if needed. But your very presence will be instrumental in the decisions the enemy team plays in avoiding you. Your primary targets are going to be other battleships and cruisers, so they will have to adapt accordingly or weather the storm as it comes from you.
So, just to touch on that quickly, I understand there is pretty much a circle of life in World of Warships in terms of battleships counter cruisers, cruisers counter destroyers, and destroyers counter battleships. And then,
to a certain degree, you've got that rock, paper, scissors sort of
exactly,
thing.
yeah. And then, obviously, carriers are at the back just providing support.
Yeah, they can be. A good carrier player will be pretty versatile. In the main game, some of them skilled enough to take down the destroyers, but that's usually a rarity. So the carriers will be attempting to soften up the enemy battleships, removing them quickly. Yeah, they're slower, less maneuverable. Most of them, with exceptions, will have pretty poor AA, anti-aircraft defenses, certainly in the lower tiers. So they'll be good fodder for those aeroplanes. It'll then get tougher as you go down certain lines. The American line in the main game, and probably in Blitz as well, will have fairly comparatively strong anti-air defense, and the Japanese not so much. So you'll have these trade-offs in all sorts of ways, be it armor or armament, and also AA defenses and torpedo range, etc.
Am I right in saying am I right in saying that cruisers have the best AA defense?
They can do. There are ships like the Iowa, the higher tier American ones have pretty formidable AA, but the cruisers will tend to either boost the anti-aircraft or provide the backbone of it. The Russian cruisers especially have nigh on impenetrable AA.
Ooh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, I just found when I was playing all the different ships that the cruisers seem to you can just see your guns going hell for leather, your AA guns. And I just tend to find that I get hit a lot more in my battleship, but that's probably because everyone's targeting you because you're slow.
Yeah, there will be that aspect, yeah.
Now, the other thing is armor and big guns on these things. Something you don't have in World of Tanks is obviously over-penetration we do in World of Warships Blitz. But I also wanted to ask you, now, say for example there's a destroyer coming at me. If, obviously I've got AP loaded.
Yep.
It's recommended to fire HE at the destroyers, from a battleship. Would you fire off your AP and then switch to the HE, or would you just change straight to the HE and not waste your time with AP?
Now, this is where Blitz is going to be interesting as people fine-tune. In the main game, of course, you just fire off that AP. You will get thousands of hit points of damage in the main game. We'll probably say hundreds, let's say, in Blitz. But I'm wondering, and I'll be keen to experiment with this, if it isn't worth, therefore, switching to HE and quickly going over to your secondaries, which are going to be predominantly high explosive, loaded or ready to go.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
Setting off the main armament. It's going to be chicken and the egg, isn't it? Because you could then argue, well, fire off that AP, switch to HE, then switch to your secondaries. But this is a fast-paced game.
Exactly.
so in the time wasted for that extra salvo that might miss, depending on the range, with the dispersion of battleships, you may well miss. So you might have been better served quickly employing those far more accurate short-range secondaries in defense than using it, because your primary armament against destroyers is really going to be secondary to your secondary armament.
No, I get what you're saying. What I've been doing to date so far is firing off the AP, only because you've got to do the reload anyway.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd do that, and at least I get some damage. But then, like you said, I'm focusing more on my main guns then, instead of my secondaries, which are devastating to destroyers.
Very much more so in Blitz than in the main game.
So that's interesting, because if I didn't focus on trying to get that AP off and then switch into the HE, which logical is the first thing you do, because you've got to reload anyway, so you might as well fire them off. However, the time you take in concentrating on that, it's obviously maybe worth just focusing down the secondaries while your mains are reloading anyway.
And this is the main thing. There's theory and then there's practice.
Exactly.
And then there's going to be habit as well.
Very true. Any other recommendations you can give us? Now, obviously, angling of battleships. What sort of angle is... Obviously, there is no running hard, fast answer there. But
No, it's kind of like tanks, though, in the respect that you don't really want to be flat on, because you can get penetrated the length of the ship through the superstructure if the other player knows where they're aiming. And I'm not sure how much Blitz caters to this. You kind of want to be slightly oblique, but with your bow armament being the primary damage dealer. And once they've fired their entire salvo at you, and you can rest assured that they're not going to quickly return fire, you may have time to swing out your stern and get your full broadside at an angle into that ship. It will be dependent on the arrangement of your guns and that armament and the particular ship differences. For instance, like the Izumo, you might be able to get all 3 guns lined up, but you might not. And you just... ships like North Carolina and the Iowa with the 2 front batteries, that rear turret is very, very rarely used. You'd probably only swing that round to delete a cruiser, ideally, because you want to just be bow on. Similar story for the Yamato as well at tier 10.
yeah, I noticed the Yamato doesn't have much armor, but it has great big filthy guns.
Dirty great guns, the biggest guns in the game.
They are devastating. Especially, here's the other thing actually in terms of armor. Obviously, it's easier to go through the deck and get a shed ton of citadel shots, but to do that, you've got to do it at the absolute range of your guns, haven't you, to get that big arc on.
You can employ plunging fire, or conversely, you can get the low shell arcs at closer range that will punch through that belt armor of many ships. And if you aim below the guns or below the smokestacks in the engine room, you should get your citadels at that sort of medium short range. Again, there are differences. If the German battleships, their armor layouts, and some other battleship lines, if they've got turtleback armor, then actually at short range you'll struggle to pen them, and it will only be plunging fire through the thin decks that you'll get those citadels. So the main rule is one thing, and then you're going to have the little hiccups on the way that are the peculiar ships.
You've got tanks which are tanks. You've got ships which go out of the normal stereotype. It's the same as tanks. Light tanks are obviously very, very fast firing guns, but then you got something like a T-49 in tanks which just has a great big 152, and it's filthy.
There you go.
So that doesn't fit into the normal stereotype of that sort of tank, and obviously, well, I imagine Tirpitz being a nice example, because that's got steel decks, isn't it?
Yeah, it's well armored decks and that turtleback armor scheme.
So I imagine that thing's just hell to penetrate anyway.
It can be, except weak on the turn. If you can catch it as the ship lists to one side in a harder port or a harder starboard turn, you can sometimes get penetrating shots down through the superstructure in the deck in those moments. Or if you're on the other side of the ship, you can get it just below that main belt if your aim's good enough in the weaker lower plates of the hull. There's just those little sort of pixel hunting things and just little characteristics that experience will teach you.
Obviously, the Tirpitz isn't in Blitz yet, but I really want it in. And when I was trying to give some feedback to the World of Warships Blitz team, I was just saying, please add a Tirpitz.
There's always a ship that people are crying out for.
Yeah, there will always be. I mean, once they give a Tirpitz, I'll then be crying out for British battleships. They're not the prettiest of things, but
where's the Royal Navy?
Yeah, exactly. At the moment, there's a Campbelltown, which technically isn't even British, is it? But
no, American hand-me-down from World War One.
Exactly. So that's the only thing in the British tech tree at the moment, and that's a Prem. So yeah, I do want to see British ships in, but I also really, really want the Bismarck and the Tirpitz, which they do as well. But like they said, everything comes with time. It's early days. Which another thing, actually, just quickly before we change to a different class with some more tips, battleships. One thing I would love for them to change, as I mentioned to you earlier, is being able to change or move the camera around without the need of moving the guns at the same time. It's really annoying.
Until they implement something that you mentioned, like the slider sort of system, I'd probably advise switching to your secondaries to do that.
That's a very good shout.
And they're quicker to turn, and it's less problem. I don't know. In practice, it might also change your primary armament. I'm not sure if it leaves them where you left them when you switch to secondaries, or otherwise I'd have to check actually.
I
So
got a feeling they do move as well, but nonetheless,
okay.
I'm going to trial that to be on the safe side.
Yeah, just something
But
that just occurred to me then, and so
yeah, it's a good idea though. I mean, like if they just added, like in World of Tanks Blitz, at the bottom right, you can add a bar to swing your camera around without turning your turret. Add something like that in World of Warships Blitz, and you're rosy.
the only thing I'd also kind of add to that is probably just look at your mini map.
No,
Just
it's
keep
true.
an eye on the mini map skill is a huge one, and it's something that players in the main game have. Some have yet to learn, but it's something to master as well. Just getting your eye up out of the binocular view and making that a habit as well. Fire, come out of the binocular view almost straight away if you can.
100%. Same as sniper mode. Once you've sniped into something, you get straight out,
Yep.
have a look around, and then go back in if you're ready to go again.
Again, easier said than done. If you're in the thick of it with a destroyer rushing you, you're obviously going to be switching straight to secondaries.
Exactly.
But when it's the sort of the normal pace of the game, then those are good practices to stick by.
Well, obviously, I wanted to cover battleships first there because they are my favourite class so far. If we go to the complete opposite extreme, the destroyers. You hear a lot about destroyers, so I wanted to ask you for some tips for people watching, viewing, etc. for this class, because some people are saying I can get in close to battleships and absolutely obliterate them because there's no aiming. There's no arming range in, as you mentioned as well, in World of Warships Blitz when there is in World of Warships.
Yeah, you have your minimum distances. With the destroyers, you're going to, what I call, employ the funnel web spider tactic, and it's going to be lurking around islands. A key thing will be reading that mini-map, etc., and trying to employ that aspect of the game, and just keeping on the strategic view. So you're nipping in and out with those. Now, the thing with the main game versus Blitz, you've obviously those detection ranges are going to be absolutely key for a destroyer player to pay attention to, knowing just how close you can get to his quarry before he's going to get spotted and they're going to deal some damage to him. So the maps are smaller. I'm assuming that detection ranges are somewhat scaled back for destroyers to allow some stealthiness, but you are going to be far more restricted in that sense. So you are going to be far more reliant, I think, on natural obstacles that are placed in the maps in order to get away with those sort of tactics.
One thing I was going to mention to you, actually, in World of Warships, they changed this, didn't they? So when you're in a smokescreen, you're proxy detected.
You can be, yeah, depending on the range. They implemented, it used to be you could invisifire, so you were undetectable even when firing. The recent change to the game is it's not the case. You fire and your detection is reduced from what it would otherwise normally be. And they also increased that range, the bloom, let's say, after firing, to your maximum gun range. So if you could hit someone, they could see you. There's no two ways about it.
No, that makes sense. I'll try and time the footage so there's cruisers, destroyers, etc. playing in the background while we're playing. But there's one of them replays, which I'll be playing on this video, that I sat in a smoke screen and I waited till a Yamato was bang on side by side with me, and I managed to put every single torpedo into the side of it.
Right.
And he was literally right next to my smoke screen and they didn't see me.
No, in the main game you'd have been proxy spotted from just under 3 kilometers, I think.
Actually, that's another thing about destroyers. I have a question for you on that. Now, is it worth not firing any guns until after you are spotted so you can attack people with torpedoes, or as soon as you see something, is it worth firing off straight away your guns, or would you hold on until you, in a situation, you use your torpedoes first? Because obviously...
Yeah, the normal practice is torpedoes are your primary armament. They are the big damage dealers. So for the best illustration is the Japanese line. They tend to be stealthy. The guns tend to be mediocre.
Yeah.
And the torpedoes tend to be fairly long range. The Americans are kind of balanced between the two with high rates of fire and generally pretty good guns. That's essentially how I tend to do it, in the respect that if I'm detected, I've got nothing to lose now. I might as well let rip, go full defensive mode. You shouldn't really let yourself get caught on the back foot, but it can happen regardless. So you might be in a certain destroyer with a higher detection. The Russian destroyers in the main game particularly are very visible from a long range and likely to be detected early. And they'll often be detected and not be able to see what's seeing them. So there are sort of different situations where you're going to have to use your head, use your loaf, and adapt accordingly. But primarily you're going to be spotting for your team to enable them to bring the gunfire, enable those battleships to then deal damage to the other ships. Ideally, the battleships will remove the cruisers which stand in your way between sending torpedoes at the enemy battleships. So it's kind of symbiotic relationships that you want to foster and help promote there. And not just laying smoke screens for your own benefit, but if you can see parts of the map where you can perhaps lay a smoke screen to block visibility from the enemy to your battleships, but keep outside of that smoke screen so you can keep eyes on, then that can be a huge game changer for the whole team. I don't know how the spotting mechanics in Blitz work, but I'm going to assume that a smokescreen would obscure view.
It does, yeah. It does. And you can't see through the smokescreen.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that's a big thing.
You can't see through it. So that's actually a very, very handy tip. You mentioned with cruisers then as well. Obviously, is it worth avoiding cruisers in destroyer and just trying to focus battleships first?
If you have to, if you can see a cruiser that's straight lining, that doesn't look to be changing his course or speed, then why not have a pop? Because you can get rid of him, fantastic. But you will tend to be not just spotting, but also hunting those enemy battleships. You're going to try and put yourself in a position where the enemy destroyer isn't likely to screen you either, or you're prepared for him. So you're comfortable enough that you can gun him down. In really, the best practice would be follow your fleet, screen your fleet, so you've got a cruiser behind you that should you need him, he can then rein in and smash that destroyer that might pop up and block your torpedo run on that battleship and cause you problems. So there's kind of this sort of give and take seesaw effect, and there's some safe practices, but then there's going to be times when you're going to lay up weight behind that island, and oh yeah, there it comes. The Yamato is going to be right next to your smoke screen, and you can capitalize as you've described.
Yeah,
that's the fun of the game.
It is. It feels quite filthy though, because you're completely undetected and it's smack bang next to you, and you know your torpedoes are all going to hit.
And there you are. If you're in a battleship and you see a smoke screen,
stay away.
It's going to be angry.
Actually, that's the other thing. Very, very important. There's no team damage and there's no ramming damage, which I'm disappointed by personally. But
thing about the ramming, team probably that's not such a bad idea.
No, but with the ramming, if you ram something at the moment, whether it be friendly or enemy, your ships kind of glitch, and you could even use it as a good tactic to, like if you're in a battleship, to turn your ship quickly, because when it glitches at the moment, I imagine they're going to fix this with time, but if you drive a battleship straight into something, it'll glitch and turn flat side to it.
Right.
So rather than wasting your time trying to turn, you can just glitch basically sideways and just level it.
Okay, because I got to Kawachi on the Asia account that was up before, but I never came across that.
Try it. Try just ramming into something. It's really annoying. No, I hate it, because right at the start sometimes you get a battleship just go right across the front of the entire team, and everybody's just stuck, because you can't really reverse really easy, can you? You got to slow down and then.
No, it takes a long time. This is where certainly with battleships you need to really think ahead. You need to plan your maneuvers, especially if you're in a slower battleship that can't adapt to the flow of battle, as well as this is American versus Japanese for the most part. The Japanese are lightly armored and faster moving for the most part, and like something like the Colorado or even the South Carolina, very slow, dumpy, and it's less able to be quite as adaptive.
I think the next thing then, obviously we've covered the main ships. Obviously we've covered both variations by broad contrast, and obviously the happy medium between them then is the cruisers. Now, from my experience, which as I said is limited so far, cruisers basically struggle against battleships but obliterate destroyers.
Yeah, cruisers can help deal with battleships. A cruiser versus a battleship, 9 times out of 10 the battleship will win. The hit points, for one stark contrast, it's just got that health pool to deal with the onslaught from it. A cruiser, if it does have to face a battleship, will be using its maneuverability to dodge the shells. Battleships have large dispersion RNG, inbuilt into them. So I know one of your viewers tweeted out that they're struggling to hit with their battleships. If it's not just dispersion and the fall of shot, so to speak, then it's going to be a case of leading them. That's going to come with time. But if we go sort of specifically back to cruisers, they're high rates of fire, so they can really lay down quite a lot of high explosive on the decks and get those battleships ablaze. And the same in Blitz, you've got your repair party tool that extinguishes fires. If you are set on fire as a battleship, don't be too quick to extinguish the very first blaze, because you have to correct me here, but I think you can get multiple fires in Blitz. So you may wish to hold it if you're under constant attack, unless you're very low on health and know that if you don't put it out immediately, you will die in that instant. If you've got enough health to play with, just bide your time, weather that storm for a while. You may even take a stray torpedo that will cause flooding, so there's always that possibility as well. But if that's not the case and you're just against a cruiser that's raining the HE, bide your time, let him set some fires, because fire damage is a huge percentage of that is regainable just with the heal function that you get. And it's worth mentioning that you get heal, I believe it's on all classes of ships.
You do, yes.
Amazing. Again, this is something that's not in the main game. Yeah, I've noticed on there. You get a heal where you can recover a lot of hit points.
It is. This is the actual. Just. Sorry, I don't mean to intrude.
No, that's
something
okay.
I got to point out here. This is the part to me which I think is slightly pay to win, because your repair party and your heal consumable. Yeah. There's a gold version which you can only buy with gold. You can't switch to silver, and there's a silver version. Obviously, the gold has a shorter cooldown time, and it does that little bit more in terms of healing. Only costs 15 gold, but when you think about 15 gold in every single battle, for both consumables, that's 30 gold every battle for those consumables. That's a slightly pay-to-win aspect.
I did notice that. That was a little bit disappointing. But,
it's a small margin. It's only I think it's about 7 or 8 seconds shorter cooldown, but in the heat of a battle, that can make all the difference.
It can. That isn't much relatively, and it is all relative, isn't it? I didn't find that premium was. Again, I'm talking low tiers though, so even in the main game, premium isn't such a must in the low tiers. Were you running a premium account on Asia?
I was, yes. For the first part, I didn't, and then I did, only because I wanted to try and progress the lines quicker. I find the XP and the credit earning is a bit. Actually, XP I think is not an issue anymore. It's the credit earning's quite a struggle. Okay,
so there is that limitation with premium. Were you able to run your high tiers quite profitably?
Comfortably with a premium, yeah.
Right, but okay.
Without, not really.
Same as in the game then. So players, they're going to be pretty much used to that. And this is a free-to-play game, so you can make of it what you will. Yeah, I was slightly disappointed, but yeah, I kind of accepted it on that grounds. I was like, okay, I'll let you get away with this one. And this supplies.
It's like premium ammo. Premium ammo in World of Tanks. You can switch from gold to change it to silver. If they did that, then obviously you can't really argue pay to win. It just makes it more expensive to run a ship. But because you can only do it for gold, then that to me is slightly pay to win, because you can only buy. It may well be,
as the game gets more popular, these little features are migrated over.
Well, precisely. I think
so
the key
a lot
thing,
of it's wait and see.
Mate, you are exactly right. The end of the day is this has only been out for technically a couple of days. They've been working on it for a while now, but I imagine all these things are going to get changed in the future anyway.
A lot stands to be improved. I'm going to touch on the UI differences as well. I think for the most part, the Blitz UI has a few advantages over the main game. In the main game, you'll have little boosts and tweaks applied through flags. So you have a myriad of semaphore signal flags. that you can mount. You can even buy them in the shop on EU. I don't think you can buy them over in North America. You can earn them in the game, but you can't necessarily buy them, I don't think, in the premium shop. In Blitz, you've got these little boosters such as high-grade coal, refined diesel. I think there might even be improved rations. There's things that are just far clearer. There's the premium version of certain ones, I think I recall on there, with higher buffs to XP or credit gain. But there's a choice there between the two. There's some that you can purchase. There's the camouflage system that's in there, which is the same as the main game. The difference being you kind of rent for credits. I think it's for 6 hours in Blitz, and then you've got the gold permanent camouflages again, which exist in the main game too. You can buy for doubloons permanent camouflages.
The historical camo, though, which I imagine most people are going to be hunting, is 6,000 gold for each ship, just as a heads up.
Wow. Yeah.
But my problem is I love the historical camos. I think they look epic. So
yeah, I'd like those as well. Just something I noticed, guys. If you do sign up, you get the. I don't know how long it's running for. You get the Aurora free.
Yeah, that's,
you know more about this.
Yeah, it's already the page to sign up is already gone now. It's only pre-register. But I think most people should have received it by now.
I didn't knowingly register for it. I may have done with the Asia one, I'm not sure, but I got credited it just after installing it.
There we go.
On my device, and that was automatic. So, but that's a good little one to experiment with mounting equipment on. Being a premium, it's going to be a good little credit earner anyway. It seems to be really capable at tier 3. It seems far better in Blitz than it seems in the main game. So that's something, if you are going to mount stuff, maybe experiment on a premium ship where you'll get the most bang for your buck. If you put it on something like the iEarlGrey, on like a tier 1, well, you're going to be past that in a couple of battles, so you're going to be wasting your credits. I like the blueprint system.
I like that. It's very clear.
Similar to the upgrading. Yeah, but it is far clearer, and it's far easier to understand what these things affect and what they do through their descriptions. I like these aspects to it all. I think they're good. The tech tree is well laid out as well. Of course, on a mobile device, you've got to be clear and concise with the screen space that you've got. So I don't know if that's a governing factor behind it.
No, it's very true. I'd be interested actually to see what the age bracket of viewers for World of Warships Blitz is in comparison to World of Tanks Blitz. My average viewer base is 25 to 45 years old, which surprised me because I was expecting it to be a younger, but it turns out that's pretty much my age bracket.
Yeah.
Which is your age bracket as well.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if is World of Warships going to be more older? Is it going to be still the same age bracket? I don't know. I'll have a look. I'm curious on that one, though. I'm guessing it's probably going to be around the same. But still.
Yeah.
Because it's on an app store, you tend to find there are more younger people because it's on an app store and it's obviously mobile.
Yeah, and now the main game's been introduced on Steam as well, so it's therefore more accessible to perhaps a younger age range.
That is genuinely what I thought. I thought because it's Blitz, it's on an app, and it's on mobile, it's going to be more of the younger generation, but it's not. Like I said, my viewer base is, I think it's like 80% in that age bracket, mate. Which pretty much says to me that, well, we all like playing it in older generation. So
we're all grumpy old kids.
Oh, absolutely. So I'd be curious to see if there's any difference in World of Warships Blitz, which is completely irrelevant from what we're actually talking about. But this is why we have pretty much gone for 38 minutes already. Last one we haven't covered is carriers, mate.
Yeah, carriers I didn't get to experiment with in on the Asia War account. I said I only got to Kawachi, which is the early Japanese battleship. So that was about the highest I got. I have seen carriers in the game, and to talk about how they'll carry over, I can't speak for the interface and how that's been implemented. Have you experimented with it?
Not a great deal. Like we mentioned at the start, I tend to find it's easier to hit battleships because they're bigger and slower. Aside from that,
the same's going to be true.
They're fast for big ships, though. Granted, they got no armor, but I found that the carriers are quite fast in pulling off.
Right. Well, you can in the main game use your carrier for capping and stuff. I wouldn't on the small maps.
No.
You're likely to get detected by a destroyer if you start being ambitious, and then obliterated by battleships with their range, so they will rain a lot of pain onto you. You've gonna if you're gonna go down the carrier line and blitz, I think the same principles are going to apply. You're going to want to pick off lone battleships that don't have the anti-aircraft support of their cruisers to back them up. They're also slower. They're going to find it far more difficult to dodge your torpedo bombers. Most likely you're going to have dive bombers as well at your disposal. Dive bombers you'll tend to bring in the second wave, so the torpedo bombers will drop on this poor battleship. You would hopefully set a flooding, and floodings are so damaging over time that most captains will try and repair those almost instantly. If you hang fire with your dive bombers and then drop those, the high explosive bombs should set at least one fire, which will stick and do the full damage.
So do the torpedoes first to encourage people to basically repair the flooding, and then because the flooding's going to get more people actually interested in using the repair, and then bring your dive bombers in as a secondary.
There we go, and all that damage. Now, that damage is, as I've mentioned before, fire damage is generally, you can repair a lot of it, but you then rack up the damage regardless.
Yeah.
So long term, obviously those battleships can repair that back, but if they're being focused as well and you're helping a team out, they should get eradicated and out of the game. There are other things. If you got more in depth with it, if you were to position your torpedo run at the right time, you could get a battleship to be forced to turn his broadside to your team, so therefore take maximum damage, so you'll be assisting in that way. Another primary function of the carrier is obviously spotting as well. If you can light up those enemy destroyers for the cruisers to feast on, all the better. Your dive bombers may be a better tool for causing damage to destroyers if you need to. If maybe a destroyer is the only thing left, you may be forced to drop on those, so dive bombers might be the easiest way, or you could get ambitious and try with your torpedo bombers.
That would be I'm gonna have to see if we can try that, only because I haven't played a huge amount of carrier. For anyone who hasn't played carrier at all, it's a top-down view. It's more,
it's not for many players. It's probably a very low percentage of the player base that play carriers, but those that do often dedicate themselves to that class alone. So if you do come across a carrier captain, it's likely he'll either be absolutely rubbish and not a problem, hopefully on the enemy team, or he'll be amazing. That is the only thing he does, and he will just rifle through the enemy, or hopefully not your team.
There's no happy medium, in other words.
No, normally, no.
The other thing, actually, following on from what you said about using torpedo bombers first and then dive bombers, also from the same perspective, I'd say it's worth keeping an eye out for ships which have recently put a fire out, and then try and target those ones as well.
Is there a way you can designate targets?
I don't know, in all honesty.
That's something I'll keep an eye out for. Normally in the main game, you'll try and designate to focus fire, and you might even type in the chat. I think I'd read about feedback where people wanted more quick commands.
They've added quick commands now. There was a chat section,
right,
and in fact there was really annoying. The game very first initially released to very, very pre-beta. There was a chat option, like voice chat.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Yeah, I would as well.
There was only a couple of people on it, and when I was playing it, you'd press the microphone, you'd say your message, but of course, in theory, that's an amazing idea. In reality, you just get spammed.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, that's just not going to work. But they removed that in the next patch before actually main release. So it's
good idea.
To worry about.
Such a good idea. Again, theory versus practice.
Exactly. Aside from that, is there any other overall tips that you could recommend to us about the game in general, or any of the classes, any other tips or anything?
It's going to be a bit of... You're not going to expend much just sort of researching a destroyer, like the first destroyer you can come across, and getting to grips with that to find which one suits you best. I'm going to guess that with the addition of the secondaries being player controlled, a lot more people are going to enjoy battleships. But if you're like me and you feel that only dead fish go with the flow, that might prompt you to go down destroyers. Because like, if there's a glut of battleships, it's going to be great for me to go down the destroyer route. In the main game, I've actually focused on cruisers, and I do enjoy those. Either of them do seem to promise pretty fast action and pretty enticing gameplay. With regards to tips,
it's a very vague question, I'm aware.
it is tough, especially given how some of it's peculiar to this new platform that it's on, how the game's been adapted to suit that platform, and just how it's going to play out. As you said, there's little intricacies like the arming distances that you don't have to contend with.
Yeah, which means you can drive by battleships in your destroyers at very, very close range. However, obviously you're in range of secondaries then, aren't you?
Yeah, there's at this stage I don't really have any sort of main hot tips aside from those that I've mentioned, where pay attention to your mini map, keep an eye on that. Come out of the sniper view, don't tunnel vision in there. But really, don't do what I did in the main game and go down all the line, because they'll take ages and you won't really get the benefits and learn that much. So if you're going to go down battleships, that's fine, but stick to those.
Yeah, what I did when I first started, I went down one battleship and one destroyer.
Yeah, that can help for a bit of variety, because it does get a bit boring. That's why I did it. But
in fact, actually, one thing I haven't mentioned in this video, I don't think, which you and me have spoke about previously, I didn't enjoy the lower tiers. It was only when I started to get towards about tier 4 that you can start to see big differences in between the different classes. Which,
right, yeah.
For me, that's when the game became more interesting. So if you're looking at low tiers and you're a little bit and ahhing, bear with it until like tier 4, tier 5. You may start to enjoy it more, because that's when each class starts to become its own.
Yeah, and you start to see the potential really coming into play. And then also you get the less, how shall we call them, erratic players.
Yeah, this is true. This is very true. I believe the correct terminology everyone usually goes with is the newbies, not the noobs, the newbies, because obviously they haven't got a clue when they just YOLO in, don't they?
Can do, yeah. Yeah, you'll get those guys, and they're not bothered. It's just wham bam, thank you ma'am, back to port.
Next battle. Yeah.
Indeed.
Actually, one thing before we do end up, I recommend once you got to get to, I think you got to be like level 12 or something to get the campaign missions open. When you do, I recommend doing them because they give you a lot of goodies for completing that, which obviously helps you in the randoms.
That is a big aspect. I was very impressed by. You've got daily login rewards that give you credits, XP, and all sorts of goodies. You've got career missions and personal missions. That aspect of the game seems far more streamlined and polished than it does in the main game.
On top
main
of
game,
that,
you do have events and campaigns. You do have that, but that's a very recent addition, and it is being worked on. Yet in the mobile game, it just seems very simplified, very slick. And it's very pleasing. You log in and it's shiny. You have to click. But it's very gratifying, to go through and go, that's kind. Thanks a lot. You can get doubloons actually, certainly when you start, to hook you in, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But there's good benefits on offer.
You just reminded me as well as those things you mentioned there, is they've got the XP crates on the left. Have you noticed them?
Yes. Yeah.
The more you play, the more XP you earn, obviously in a day. The more crates you can unlock, basically.
You've got the container system in the main game.
And pretty much, obviously, you get choice then. You can choose blueprints or different equipment and consumables, which obviously is very, very handy. But yeah, I recommend everyone sticking out to get to the campaign, because I enjoyed that. For me, I just liked the fact of using your guns against land-based artillery.
Okay, yeah.
That was different. The graphics aren't very good on the land-based artillery, but it's a mobile game. But it was nice to do something slightly different. Obviously, you're fighting with AI, but the AI can... Actually, it's hit and miss. The AI I found at low tiers is just pants. But the AI at top tiers, bloody hell, it's annoying.
Well, what I like about the campaigns, it gives you a bit of purpose, a bit of focus.
Exactly.
And, instead of just with the random battles where it's let's see how this goes.
And it's different, isn't it? You're still in a ship, but it's a completely different game style. You've got missions, achievements to do. For example, one of them is kill all the land-based arty as well as the destroyers. So you've got a couple of secondary missions there as well. And all of them do give nice rewards with XP and so on and so forth.
I was going to say, it is normally made worth your while as well.
I just enjoy playing them.
Yeah, good stuff.
Right, I think we're going to have to cut it off here because we're about to hit 50 minutes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there we go. That's a good chatter. But it's been a pleasure, sir.
Yes, thank you very much for coming on. Obviously, myself and I imagine a lot of people will be very much appreciative of those tips, tricks, and so on and so forth, and more than anything, just the insight. For those who have not had the pleasure of seeing iEarlGrey's channel previously, he does lots of World of Warships, and I imagine, can we see some World of Warships Blitz from you in the future?
I do plan to. I might cheat. I'm theory crafting an idea of using BlueStacks on my PC and Android emulator, and just seeing if I get away with playing it with keyboard and mouse. But unfortunately, the only alternative I've got is my private device, and my private device is only 5.5 inches. I'm sure yours is much bigger than mine. And I'm sure those listening have private devices that are much bigger than mine. So I do find it quite limiting playing with something so small. But yeah, often useful for portability. But
we are still talking about phones now, yeah?
We are indeed, yes.
just checking. I wasn't thinking anything about phones or that conversation. Obviously.
I should hope not, sir. I should hope not. Being a gentleman and a scholar like yourself.
Absolutely. No, I think it'd be nice if obviously you mentioned that you'd be looking into it, but for anyone who hasn't checked out your channel, I do recommend they do so, because I learned a lot of background knowledge on the game just by watching your videos, and they are fun to watch as well. Especially if you're going to be doing the occasional World of Warships Blitz one, I'll be tuning into them as well.
You're too kind, sir. You're too kind.
Not a problem, my friend. It's all the truth, so yeah.
Well, yeah, your channel's going strength to strength, so keep up the sport, chaps, and obviously let us know in the comments below what you think and how you found these theories and ideas.
Absolutely, yeah. And there is a link to iEarlGrey's channel in the
bless you, sir,
in the thing below as well. I was going to say thing below, the video comments below. There we go.
Thingamabob.
Yeah, it's not even late at night. Usually I record my videos really late when the family's asleep, so I have no excuse for the incoherent conversation at times. But no, we are going to cut it off, guys, because we're coming up 52 minutes. But for those who have stuck out to this point, thank you all very, very much for watching. iEarlGrey, you are a legend. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure as always.
And we'll catch everybody soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.